Now is Christopher Young. He is the Donald Bren Chair of Non-Western Strategic Thought at Marine Corps University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure thing.
Let's start with what's happening around the Korean Peninsula. What message is the Trump administration sending by ordering this carrier task force to go over there closer? What are the implications in that area? And would you say this would be provocative or preventative?
So I would say that the overall message that the Trump administration is probably trying to send to the region, both to China and to the North Koreans, is that it's prudent, given North Koreans' provocative actions, the number of tests it's conducted, the number of statements that from the North Korean leadership, that it's prudent to show military force in the region to try and have a possible military response to anything provocative North Korea may be taking. And with regard to your second question, is this a provocative action? My interpretation is it's not a provocative action. It's a prudent course of action to address some aggressive actions from North Korea.
It is coming on the heels, though, of this unilateral strike by the United States to that base in Syria. So how would you characterize the Trump administration's sort of shift in military strategy? What is he sending to the greater world? I mean, we had what happened in Syria. Now we have this movement in the Korean Peninsula. What are people supposed to read from this?
So there are a number of ways to interpret what's happened. The comparison between what the campaign had been indicating and with what has taken place could be construed as a 180-degree shift from campaign rhetoric to actual policy. I would not necessarily make too much of that interpretation. On the other hand, what you could be seeing is a return to more centrist, national security, establishment figures having greater say in the Trump administration. Therefore, what you're probably seeing now is a move back towards traditional Republican, conservative, hawkish foreign policies that have been marked by the G.W. Bush administration, the Reagan administration, and to some degree, a large number of foreign policy experts are relieved to see some of this. So I would not necessarily interpret too big of a shift with regard to what's happened. I would say that this is an effort to show that the United States is willing to be more activist in its foreign policy and to back up diplomacy and foreign policy with military force.
That being said, with military movement, do you think it's possible that we could see, or is there a greater chance of accidental conflicts, or, you know, we had with Syria, Russia cut off its communication with the United States in Syria. So that being said, could we see an accident?
Sure.
That could lead to something more.
Yes. So whenever you have military forces operating in the vicinity of one another, there's always the possibility that there's an accident, that there could be an accidental clash. Miscommunication could always lead to some sort of escalation. So there's always that danger. But when you have two countries, particularly Russia and the United States, who have a long history of interacting with one another militarily, that's a concern I don't lose sleep over that at night. Of course, there's the danger of it. I'm more heartened by the fact that the United States is willing to use military power to exert itself in its interests to bring about a peaceful and perhaps a calmer situation. Now, whether it succeeds or not, very hard to say, but having the United States be willing to exert itself and use that as leveraging or negotiating leverage to bring about a diplomatic solution, to me, is a pretty good strategy.
Could it do the opposite and, in fact, lead to a ground war? Could we see another unilateral action by the United States, or was that just sort of a one-off, as some people were?
Well, I mean, there's an in-between position on the question you just asked. I think your correspondent was correct. This is not the precursor or the beginning of a ground offensive or United States ground forces in Syria. But you could see, as Ambassador Haley has pointed out, that there could be additional actions that the United States could take to exert its political influence through military means. You could park military forces in the vicinity at sea using your naval capabilities just to show that the United States is interested and willing to exert pressure. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have ground troops operating in Syria.
All right, Christopher Young, thank you for your insight. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.